This is part 2 of a video about Skinwalker missiles, Tic Tacs, entities, and a phenomena. This is the grave concern of the DOD right now. And their message to Congress is that there is an entity. There is an entity, a phenomena around us that has great powers. And those powers could potentially fall into the hands of an enemy of the United States. That's their main concern. That is their main concern. We're going to pick it up where we left off on video number 1. And we're going to look at what is the message and where are we going with this. So the memo that was released by the DOD intelligence branch said that we stand vulnerable to be penetrated by an entity. Our physical facilities could be penetrated by an enemy. And in the first video, we talked about how the Skinwalker Ranch demonstrated that very easily in that they took over the property. They locked it down, declared it top secret. Nobody could go in or out, and yet the Skinwalker had its way with them, and they left the facility with the tails between their legs. And the second thing they're concerned about is influencing decision makers. And the thing we talked about in the last video was how the Minuteman missile people that control those missiles deactivated them and then forgot that they'd done that, all under the influence of an orb that had been situated over a missile control center. And the third thing is compromising national security, and we use that as an example of the Tic Tac and the F-15 crew from the Nimitz that lost view of the Tic Tac, and the radar reported back that, oh yeah, the Tic Tac's waiting for you at the waypoint. And they were shocked because the waypoint's location is classified. How did the entity, if you will, or how did the Tic Tac know where the waypoint was? That suggests that the Tic Tac can pull out secrets from our heads. That's cognitive manipulation. Wow. So these are the concerns, and we're going to be looking into them just a little bit deeper in this video. So stay with us. Now, on the Skinwalker Ranch, some of the stuff was destructive. You're talking about cattle mutilation. You're talking, even cramming 5 bulls into a container only made for 2 bulls, and a lot of really destructive stuff that went on there. And but you have to be aware that not all of it was destructive. Some of it was just mischievous, like moving a toothbrush from a bathroom to the kitchen. Wow, that's something that a little boy would do, trying to be mischievous, trying to be naughty. So we're not sure. Are we talking about this force, this destructive force? Or are we talking about a child that's running wild, doing mischievous things just to make people mad or just to scare people? We don't know. We really don't know. But we can back away and we can say the purpose of such acts would be to demonstrate physical domination over any of effort to control or to record whatever they do. And that's what the Skinwalker definitely demonstrated, that he has total physical control. Now, when we talk about influencing decision makers, well, that missile crew deactivated those missiles and had a big investigation because they shut down nuclear Minuteman missiles. And the big investigation, they said, well, why did you do that? And they couldn't remember. They said, oh, no, we didn't do that. Somebody else did that. No, no. What is clear here is that that orb that was parked over the missile control center was directing those missile people, the crew of missiles, missile control people, to deactivate the missiles. And if that's not bad enough, it basically erased those memories from their brains. Wow. Cognitive manipulation. So what would be the purpose of that? Well, to demonstrate cognitive override of our mental faculties. And that we have certain protocols that we need to follow, and to make us not follow those protocols, to override those protocols. And then to ruin the memories of that override? Wow. That's a pretty good demonstration, isn't it? Extraction of our mentally concealed procedures and secret codes. Well, remember the tic-tac went to the waypoint, right? What would be the purpose of that? To demonstrate the ability to read our minds, to be able to see right into our playbook, and to pull out any kind of closely guarded secret that we had in our mental capacity. That's a pretty good purpose to demonstrate. So, put them all together. We have a demonstration of physical control, we have a demonstration of cognitive override, and we have a demonstration of ability to read our minds and look at our secrets. So in summary, that's kind of what the purpose of these a variety of different events told us what they're trying to do. Well, the next question is, now that we have what seems to be the purpose, let's ask the question, what about the motivation? Why would they do that? Well, most people think it's just a warning. That's what most people think. They think it's like we're little children and the adult comes into the room and points their finger at us and says, we don't like your aggressive attitude and we think you should reconsider using nuclear weapons because they're dangerous and very destructive. Most people think that's what's going on here, that we're just being nudged and warned not to do what we're doing. That's a possibility. But there's two other possibilities, and that's what this video is about. The other possibility is testing to find weaknesses that we may have in our military defensive or offensive weapon capabilities. Think of it like a 10-year-old or an 8-year-old kid sitting by an anthill with a magnifying glass, looking at the ants, poking at the hill, poking here, poking there, see where the queen lives, and see how the worker bees scurry when they poke them, and see what happens when they burn them, and point a magnifying glass at them and let the sun reflect. Could be a kid just curiosity. That could be one motivation. This entity that we can't see, by the way, is just curious. It's just poking us, see what it can do, just for kicks. That's a possibility of a motivation. But there's another motivation that, again, that's what this video is trying to emphasize, and that's probing. Probing. As you would operate on an individual, you would probe and see what you can do, and if you can fix something or you can break something, you have total control over that individual you're operating on. And if you had in mind to take over the earth, you would go to the strongest military in the world and you'd practice taking over control of our missiles, which is basically what happened in Minot Air Force Base. And you'd practice taking over our airplanes, which is kind of what was going on with the F-18 Super Hornet off the Nimitz. And you'd also practice, taking control of naval vessels and armored vehicles and drones and satellites. And I kind of think that that's probably been going on because the Nimitz was back in the early 2000s, and here we are in 2021, almost 2022. And all the stuff that happened between now and then is all classified. The DOD doesn't tell us what's been going on, and they very likely could have had naval vessels being involved, armored vehicles, drones, and satellites, but they would never tell us about that. That's important, though. It's important to know because it really would talk to the probing motivation. Now let's talk about the risk. If the motivation is warning, well, it's something to think about. That's good to know. Warning. Okay, we can take that as a warning. We can consider it. Now, if it's testing, it may be innocent. It may be innocent like a little kid poking at an anthill, but he may have another purpose in mind. He may be trying to clean out the anthill and pour gasoline in it. Who knows? There may be an ulterior or secret motive involved in that. If that's the case, you need to do a little bit more research. You need to look closer at that. But if the motivation is probing, watch out. We have danger ahead because if you're going to probe, you can take immediate action at any time. And we have to be ready with countermeasures if we intend to survive that. Because what we've seen so far is somebody that has something that has a power that is beyond our comprehension at this point. Something that can manipulate our physical world and can manipulate our cognitive reasoning, even our consciousness and our perceptions. If the entity, call it E, if it's preparing to take over the planet Earth, which it could be, we are in serious trouble. No wonder the DOD has prepared the memo, which we'll take a look at in a minute. No wonder they prepared the memo, and they are worried that not only the entity could exercise an attack, but an enemy of the United States, namely Russia or China, could cozy up to this entity and find out how the entity does it, or even get to work with this entity called E. And then we're really in trouble. They're worried. I'm worried too. So all you people out there that have been read into the program, you know all you people that know where all the goodies are buried, and you know what the real concerns are and why we're really afraid. Ones that know all the secrets. Hey, you guys, don't tell us what you do not know. Please. Just like you did to Congress. You told them what you did not know. Tell us what you do know. Tell us what you do know, because, we might be able to help. We could solve some problems, maybe, of these issues. We're not dummies. We're citizens. We're friends of yours. We're with you. At least we'll be able to be on the same side. And if this entity E does attack us, at least we'll all know what is happening. We'll understand what's going on around us. So we'll be less vulnerable, and we'll be fighting with you. So you have everything to gain and nothing to lose to bring us into your tent. Don't try to huddle in the back of your secret little black tent and think that you're so cool, that you know everything, because it's going to be the end of us, perhaps, if you keep it to yourself. Fess up, guys. Bring us in. Now's the time. Now is the time. The memo that we mentioned before, that basically has been issued to the leadership in Washington, says that there exists a science that an enemy of the United States could get a hold of, in which he could manipulate physical and cognitive environments around us in order to penetrate U.S. facilities, influence decision makers, and to compromise national security. And notice the sub-bullets underneath there. They got psychotronic weapons. My goodness gracious. I suspect what they mean by that is a weapon that you could point at somebody to change their mind or make them do something psychologically, psychotronic weapons. Well, this entity might be not actually need a weapon. Maybe it can just do that mentally. Maybe so, maybe not. But I guess they're afraid that, like, China and Russia might actually build a weapon, a physical weapon, psychotronic, that could go into our heads and change what we're thinking. It's possible. They're looking at it. Cognitive human interface. My goodness. Some kind of machine that can interface with our cognitive realities in our brain. They're looking at that too. And they're afraid that somebody else will come do it before they get done with it. Penetration of solid surfaces. My goodness, that means opening up something and then closing it back up. Stepping through a wormhole. Some of the unpublished phenomena that occurred on the Skinwalker Ranch would be interesting to point out at this point. When they filmed an orb getting close to one of the farmhouses on Skinwalker, they filmed it with ultraviolet cameras, and so that you could see things that the human eye couldn't see. The camera evidently showed what they called a three-dimensional tunnel. A three-dimensional tunnel where you could actually look into the tunnel and see it go off into the distance. And out of that tunnel climbed a humanoid, an 8-foot tall, black presence, red eyes, and ran off into the woods. Hung on to the end of the tunnel, dropped to the ground, ran off into the woods, and then the tunnel closed up and the orb disappeared. Wow. Huh. Isn't that interesting? Penetration of solid surfaces even. Instantaneous sensor disassembly. I'm sure that refers to some of the destructive things that occurred on Skinwalker, where their cameras would not work all of a sudden, or all of a sudden become inactive or break, literally fall apart, disassembly. So they're suggesting that an enemy of the United States could be able to do this. Well, it appears that, at least on Skinwalker, there is a power, there is an entity that can do this invisibly without any problems whatsoever. Alternation or manipulation of biological organisms? My goodness, what is that? That means a shapeshifter. Wow, a biological organism that can be one organism with this minute and a totally different organism the next minute. Isn't that frightening? This is the DOD chart, ladies and gentlemen. Anomalies in the space-time construct. My goodness. Einstein said that, space and time are the same thing. It's just a matter of which one you want to use as a variable. And if it's space, that means you can step through a wormhole and go from one space in the universe to the next space in the universe, just stepping over. But he also said that time's the same way. If you don't want to use space as your variable, use time as your variable. You could step from today till 100 years from today just by going through the wormhole. That's mathematically proven by Albert Einstein. So what are they talking about here? Anomalies in that. What does that mean? That means things that mess up that construct. Can't imagine what that might mean. But it frightens them to think that somebody could mess with the space-time continuum. Unique cognitive human interface experiences. They're afraid that there can be some kind of an interface to our brain that perhaps can take it over or do things with it. Not sure, but it's scary. But then by the same token, the DOD under Dod Advantages kind of brags a little bit and say that, hey, we've looked at some of these experiences ourselves in the past. You know, we've been there and done some of this stuff, and we know a little bit about it. And they're also saying that we have relationships with academics. We've got large libraries of academic reports and on subject matters like invisibility and space-time continuum and time travel and all kinds of things like that. They've asked the academic world to report back and tell them all about that. They've got that information. And they're also saying that the DoD controls several facilities. So there's more than just the Skinwalker Ranch. There's all kinds of other places around the world that report perhaps some kind of a wormhole or some kind of an opening where something comes and goes at will. Very interesting. Where activities have been detected. They've seen this kind of thing. And lastly, they point out that this thing they're dealing with, this phenomena, seems to be more associated with quantum physics than it does Newtonian physics. What we mean by that is, Newtonian physics, if you have a particle, you know where it is and you know how to get to it, and you know how to measure it. Not true in quantum physics. Quantum physics, at best, will tell you where the particle might be, but it certainly never tells you where the particle is, or even really that the particle exists. In some cases, it might even suggest that it's not a particle. It's a wave. It's an energy wave that's connected to everything else in the universe. My goodness, so interesting stuff. So they're suggesting that this thing we're looking at could be much more along the lines of a quantum physics solution than a Newtonian physics solution. So that's where we stand, ladies and gentlemen. The DoD is afraid. They are concerned. They know some things, and a lot of things they're not telling us. And a lot of the things that scare them, they're not telling us, because they feel if they tell us, it's like telling our enemies, and telling our enemies where our vulnerabilities are, which they certainly don't want to do that. So, in conclusion, if in fact this entity called E is probing us, we need to get busy. We need to bring the United States citizen into this situation. You need to explain it to us. You need to fess up. Show us what you got. Tell us what you know. Tell us what your concerns are. And let us help you. Let us help you, because we can help. I appreciate you staying with me on this video. And we may have even a part 3 if we find out more information. Thanks a lot.